Hey, what's going on, everyone? Happy weekend. Back with another knife overview. Today, we're going to be looking at the Protech Mordax. So, the Mordax is a collaboration between Protech and Ferrum Forge. You can see Ferrum Forge's logo right there. And this came after Ferrum Forge actually had their original version of the Mordax, which we'll make a few comparisons here. It was a little bit more expensive. The materials were a little bit more premium, I guess you could say. But all in all, I'm really impressed with this knife, and with this overview, we'll kind of get into why that is. But before we jump into any comparisons or my review of this knife, we'll go over some of the stats. So the overall length on this is going to be 8.1 inches. It features a 3.5-inch blade, and kind of compare that to the Protech Malibu, which is like, obviously a smaller version of, the Protech line and, non-push button autos, but the Malibu's blade is going to be 3.25 inches long. This version of the Mordax, so this features a drop point, flat ground. The closed length is going to be 4.6 inches. It has aluminum handles that are kind of anodized black here. It's definitely a flat black. This one's going to be right hand tip up only. The action is running on bearings, which actually I'll actually post a screenshot right here. I usually try to, before reviewing these, kind of get on different websites for people selling these and get a little bit more amplified information. And Blade HQ actually incorrectly says that the Mordax is running on washers. It is not. It is on bearings. The weight of this is going to be 3.84 ounces, and you can compare that to the Ferrum Forge original Mordax, which came in at more of a whopping 5.38 ounces due to the fact that the handles were titanium on that one. This Protech is going to be made in the US of A. The version that I have is in CPM MagnaCut. The MSRP, from what I can tell, is about $310, but when these are in stock, which I couldn't find anywhere that these are in stock right now, which should tell you something, it looks like they go for about $240 to $260, and again, compare that to the original Ferrum Forge version of the Mordax, which will run you an MSRP of $485. Before we get into my observations, I will do a few quick comparisons. The Mordax as compared to a Spyderco Shaman looks like that. Have what I'm actually carrying today, so a Curtis F3 medium, looks like that. And then finally, we'll pull out the little guy. I just had to dust this thing off. A Benchmade bug out as compared to a Protech Mordax. So with that, we will jump right into my observations. All right, so jumping into my observations and overview of the Protech Mordax, I kind of just want to make a plug. Like, this knife has never really been on my radar at all, and I've kind of gotten away from buying knives that I just randomly see that I'm like, it's a couple $100, I'll review it, whatever. But I don't know, I just had like a wild hair or something like that, saw this for sale, and I was like, man, I'd heard good things about it, so it wasn't like I was in the dark. But just the lines of this thing, the fact that it was in MagnaCut, which again, I could go either way. I mean, give me a good 20 CV any day, but I just thought, like, I was kind of like drawn to this knife in a very simplistic way. Like, it just looks very utilitarian to me. So made it very easy to to go ahead and snag it. But I have gotten away from just picking up hype knives or random knives that people suggest to me, etc. Like, a knife really has to speak to me, and this one certainly did/does that. My first observation of this knife is I really do think that it is the perfect size. So that 3.5-inch blade for me, for my EDC tasks, anything smaller than that, I'm really wishing that I had a larger knife. Anything bigger than that can be kind of a little bit obtrusive. The one thing of note with this knife is, so even at 3.5 inches and with, the belly of this blade being what it is, it really does fold into such a nice very small package. I'll compare that to the Spyderco Shaman. So, I mean, definitely skinnier than that. I mean, it's kind of like a sleeper in that respect. It folds into a very unobtrusive package. The next observation that I had was just the weight, which I really do blame, or, you know, I attribute that to the fact that has aluminum handles, because the blade isn't necessarily thin, but the aluminum really keeps this thing very light, and I think that that's amazing. You know, 3.84 ounces with a 3.5 inch blade, kind of close to perfect here as far as ratios go. The next observation that I had was that there is no jimping anywhere to be found on this knife. I think this could use a little bit of jimping, but, you know, yet to be seen. You know, it's winter time, whatever. I haven't used this thing with sweaty hands or anything like that. Maybe come spring or summertime, my thoughts on not having jimping will change, but from right now, I really don't mind it, and I definitely thought that I would. The next observation on this knife is going to be this very aggressive choil right here, which I have tested out kind of gingerly. And for my hands, like, I have really big hands, but they're very skinny. Like, I have very skinny fingers. I'm very confident in using the choil, but if you kind of have, you know, chubby sausage fingers or something like that, you're definitely going to want to be careful using that choil, because it's very aggressive, and there is nothing, once you're locked in, preventing you from, you know, hitting the bad side of the blade. The next observation that I had of the Protech Mordax was just the flipper tab on here is very comfortable, super comfy. The action is a little bit counterintuitive, but I have to say, and, you know, let me qualify that statement by, you know, this whole like plunge lock, whatever, I'm definitely used to either it being assisted or it being a full auto. Like, I'm really not used to, and maybe it's just, you know, being naive, and I haven't had that many knives of this style, but I'm not used to having it where it's unassisted, but it is on washers, flipper with this like plunger lock on here. So that was kind of it took me a little bit to get used to, but I have to say, and I cannot foot stomp it enough, this is probably the most fidgety knife that I have tried, owned all year. I mean, say what you will about other knives that cost 4 times as much as this, or just have a different, you know, mechanism, whether it's assisted open, etc., like thumb flicking, front flippers, whatever. This is so addictive, and we'll get to what I think about that here coming up. But I mean, I could literally just sit here, again, much to the dismay of my wife, when I'm actually trying to get information on these knives and, you know, figure out what I want to say to them. All right, the next observation that I wanted to make was, and I kind of hinted at it before, but just the overall design and look. This is completely sleek, purpose-built looking, very utilitarian, but at the same time, like, you see this knife or you hold it, it does feel very special and professional, I would say. Again, that was one of the things that kind of drew me to it. The post that I bought this from, there was, you know, 4 or 5 different knives, and this one caught my eye out of the group. Not to say that any of the other knives were slouches by any means, but this one caught my eye, and then I was like, oh, it's a Mordax, cool, yep, let's go, we'll try it out. So definitely the overall design is very impressive. Now to kind of get to a couple of the, not downsides, but things that I've noticed. The first one being the pocket clip. It is very pokey, and I'll definitely post a picture with like how much this kind of lip ramps up. When this is in your pocket, I feel like on more than most of the knives that I own, the pocket clip just sticks up a lot and kind of gets like hung up or scratched, or, which again, this knife being, you know, I paid, I think, $240 for it. I'm not worried about the anodization coming off or anything, but more like walking, you know, like I have a 2-car garage, like walking by one of my cars, I'm like, oh, I try to cover it up. Like, it just seems like a very aggressive pocket clip, and it sticks out a lot. I think if this had a more subdued or a little bit lower profile pocket clip, I would definitely be into it. Lord knows, I mean, Honestly, they could throw a very minimalist pocket clip on here, and due to the weight, this thing would be fine. So again, you're never gonna miss your pants pocket putting this thing in, but I think just for everyday carry, they could have made it a little bit more flat and just made it a little bit less obtrusive. But again, we're splitting hairs here. The kind of last observation that I had, and it's not a pro or a con, but the build quality, it's very reminiscent of a push button auto, like that the Protech auto that I had, the PDW one, so the Invictus auto, and then even some of my other like Microtechs, like the large UDT. This knife, although it is a flipper running on bearings and a manual knife, the just kind of the feeling of it, where like again, like it has a really good lockup, but when it's closed, it just seems like there's a lot like going on, like a little bit of like side to side blade play, whatever. Like it's just the action and the tolerances are very reminiscent of what a push button auto would be, and who knows? I haven't had any problems with it, but it's definitely not something that's lost on me. Like I wonder, like, just since this thing has such a high fidget value, like what will all that fidgeting do over time? I mean, it's metal on metal. It's gonna do something to it, and I just kind of, although right now I have all the confidence in the world of this like plunger lock, everything, there's no blade play, just kind of made me wonder, like, what does the future hold if I keep sitting here for, 2 hours during the day or something, just flicking this thing. So more to follow with that, but I do plan on holding on to this knife and kind of seeing what it can do. And that concludes my overview slash review of the Protech Mordax. Again, this being a collaboration or a design of Ferrum Forge, but kind of has that Protech smell all over it with the aluminum handles. What do I think about this knife? So I bought this on a whim, as I explained, but I definitely been wanting to try one. But at $240, I was like, ah, let's go. And I am seriously impressed with this as both a collector and user of sharp objects. I think this is probably the best value or choice, taking into account size, feel, features, and most importantly, price. Sure, I'd be pissed if I lost this or it broke, but this knife to me is definitely confidence. It's one of those knives that, in the morning when you're looking at your EDC rotation, there's no drama in picking this thing up and you can feel good about it. I mean, fidget value, materials, features, price tag. I guess in the back of my mind, although I do have and have owned many, $1,000 plus knives, it's always in the back of my head, and it's not lost on me the fact that, hey, it would really hurt if I lost it. And certainly I would be disappointed, but almost more from like a sentimental value point if I lost this, just because I think it's so good. But it would make it hurt a lot less carrying this knife on a daily basis. And to be honest, since I've gotten this, I've carried it almost every day. Like, I really do like this knife if you can get your hands on it, and the fact that these are sold out everywhere should tell you something. I really wouldn't get wrapped around the axle with the one you pick up being MagnaCut or anything like that. I think the versions that are in 20 CV, etc., will definitely meet the mail, but I don't know. I'm really impressed with this knife, looking forward to kind of where it takes me. I think any EDC task I throw at this thing, it's going to be successful. So I appreciate y'all tuning in, and we will see you next time.